the footprints. I realized that a lot of people are walking, but they ain't leaving footprints.
Yeah.
I never wanted to go to college to begin with. My mindset was, if I'm whatever I'm going to leave behind, I want to live it right now. I don't want people to say, "Oh, she was this, she was great," but I didn't live that life. Yeah, this is legacy right here. Legacy is the footprints that I leave behind. And a part of that is, how do I, one, begin the work in myself to be vulnerable enough to leave the footprint. And the very thing I was trying not to do was the very thing people needed me to do, and that was to be myself.
Happy hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time you're watching this. I just want to welcome you to a wonderful episode of your Heard It Here podcast with me, your girl DTC Heard. I'm honored, I'm excited, I'm elated. I'm a lot of emotions because, one, you guys know that I'm still transitioning and moving. So, I got all that life changes. But tonight, I have such a very special person that I have been looking up to for the past, let's just say for the past at least decade, because I met this person when I was in college and she has not stopped inspiring me. I used to call her my big auntie sister. Yes, it made sense. It still makes sense because she was always pouring into me so much of what I needed that I thought that was missing. And even from afar, when, she got another job, other places, and she went on to do big and better and amazing things, she still always gave back to her community and gave back to those who came before her. And I appreciate her so much for that. And I want you guys to give a big round of applause that wherever you're sitting, go ahead and get your cup of tea, because we're going to learn today about having some audacity. Because if you ever heard of the phrase that audacity is an all-time high, but you're going to hear about how you need to have it in order to get into your purpose. I want you all to welcome the esteemed Dr. Kellie Dixon. Yes.
Oh, wow, not the esteem. First, let me say that the intro music is bomb. Like, it's dope. It had me in a groove. Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Did you like, you saw, you was like, I was looking at that. I was like,
Was
yeah,
not expecting it. I thought it was just
to be a surprise.
I thought it was a countdown for it to start. Then I saw pictures and I was like, oh, okay. Well, I'm thankful that I was able to do a photo shoot back in January to have those pictures. So
we love photo shoots. How are you today? Thank you so
good.
much for being here.
Yeah.
I'm loving the merch. I'm loving the shirt. Yes.
Yeah.
Disrupt the narratives.
Yeah.
Yes.
Leave it manifest.
Absolutely manifest. So are we going by Dr. K or are we going by Kellie?
Dr. K is fine.
Dr.
That's
K.
what everybody, people, I don't think people know that I have a real name. Everyone just calls me Dr. K.
Okay, I love it. Dr. K, yes, because she's a doctor now, put some respect on her name. So, Dr. K, I want to get into what led up to you actually getting your doctorate degree, because that's actually where I met you, right when you were kind of deciding what it is that you wanted to do and where you were going to go at Bridgewater College. May you walk us through a little bit of your background and what that journey, that process looked like?
Whew, yeah. So Bridgewater was 2011. I had just finished my master's program. And I was just happy to have a job at the time. So get into my doctorate. Well, that's an interesting question, because I have to start at the beginning in terms of, I never wanted to go to college to begin with. I really wanted to graduate high school, move to LA, and pursue a career in dancing, because I enjoy dancing. But with that, we know that, you got to have money to get a flight. And then when you get to LA, you got to have money to live. And so that just wasn't adding up for me. So I ended up going to a community college and then, of course, transferring into a 4-year college. And so when I got to Bridgewater in 2011, it really was, I'm finally in a position that wasn't the bank, because I worked at a bank for 2 years while pursuing my degree, and I get to work with students. And that was the focus. And then, working at Bridgewater is a whole nother topic for another day. But I also got into a space where I needed to honor myself, and not just honoring the students that I was serving, which led me to leaving Bridgewater, because it was a toxic environment for me. And that put me at North Carolina A&T in 2012. I started there, and it was a different culture shock to work at an HBCU, as someone who did not go to an HBCU. So it was different in that manner. But in 2013, I remember having a conversation with my grandmother, my paternal grandmother. And, when you're talking with grandparents, they're always bringing up the past and things you said when you was little. And I never forget, one part of the conversation, she was like, "Yeah, you're going to be successful. I know you're going to be a doctor. I remember you walking around here talking about you're going to own a business and all of these things." And at the time, I was just like, okay, I didn't want to go back to school. Owning a business, I wouldn't know where to start with that. And what I didn't know in 2013, that would have been the last conversation I had with my grandmother. And so I lost my grandmother in July of 2013. And a year later, I enrolled into a doctoral program. And so me getting or enrolling, or let me go back, me applying for doctoral programs was solely because I had made a promise to my grandmother. And because she was no longer here in the physical, I needed to honor that promise. I applied to 4 different schools: Northeastern University, Grand Canyon University, Regents University, and North Carolina A&T, where I was working. Regent denied me. Uh, North Carolina A&T denied me.
And you worked there. How did
Right. And Northwestern and Grand Canyon accepted me. I chose Grand Canyon, several reasons. One, their motto, "Find Your Purpose." Their colors were purple and white. Purple was my favorite color. It's a Christian school, had never been to a Christian school. So I knew that at least in that space, I would be able to just be free in my faith walk. And it was virtual, all online. So I was still able to live in North Carolina, work at A&T, even though they denied me for a doctoral degree. But
that is so crazy.
Yeah. So 2014, a year after, relatively, probably like a year and a week or two after my grandmother had passed, I enrolled into a doctoral program. I graduated in October 2018. And after that day, after I walked across the stage as a doctor, my life just began to shift in places that I could not even imagine. I couldn't even dream of some of the spaces that I was in at the time. So the funny story about A&T denying me is that my topic for my dissertation was creating a culture of assessment and student affairs at an HBCU, right? And at the time, I was the only one who was talking about that. So people start calling me a unicorn in the space. And so for me, part of my beliefs and thoughts that I was saying to myself was, all around the world, people are saying that I'm a unicorn in this space about assessment at HBCUs, yet the top HBCU denied me a spot in their doctoral program. And I just could not get through that. It took me a while, but I eventually got over that, and I was like, okay, it is what it is. And moving into that space opened up a lot of doors. It allowed me to sit back and think about the other promise that I had made to my grandmother. And so right before I graduated, I went and got an LLC for my business, right? And really didn't do a lot with it, just got it. But once I finished my doctorate degree and had more time to just focus on, what that looked like, I established my business. And to to this day, I'm doing consulting with colleges, universities, corporations, nonprofits. I'm also an executive coach, so coaching high performers. The interesting piece to that is not only am I doing that, but I'm partnering with people, with organizations that are global. Like I have a global partnership with a company out in London, right? And so I'm like,
Yes,
now I
London.
need to travel to London. Um,
Okay.
yeah, so that's kind of how I got to, the doctorate in that space. It was totally just honoring a commitment that I made to my grandmother. But what I will say, halfway during the process, because the doctoral journey is hard, it's difficult. It ain't no other way to put it. It's just difficult. But halfway through, I had to realize I can't just do it for her. So I had to find new purpose if I was going to finish. And that purpose came from my students at A&T. And they really pushed me and inspired me, which is kind of where my name, Dr. K, came from, because during the time I was very transparent about going through a program. And I remember a couple of students started calling me Dr. K. It's like, we can't wait till you finish so we can call you Dr. K, because we don't know any Black people that are doctors that we know personally that are not our teachers. And so that stuck with me. And so when I finished, it's just been Dr. K ever since.
I love that. You had so many nuggets. Thank you, one, for sharing your journey, because there's a few things I want to pinpoint. The first is, before we get into, like the other juicy stuff I want to, walking into Mental Health Awareness Month, is I feel like I remember you said you wanted to be a dancer in college, but the fact that you say you wanted to be a dancer, and a month or so ago, I was on your Monday Motivational. Thank you for that. And you're like, hey, I used to dance on Bridgewater campus. And you're like, who's that Black girl? Hope she don't get hit. You never wanted to dance with me.
No, see, I wanted to be. Let me change that. I wanted to be a choreographer. I wanted to teach people moves and then get out the way. So what was her name? Laura Ann, I think it was at that time. So I'm dating myself. She was a well-known choreographer for like R&B artists and etc. And I wanted to work under her. Like I wanted to do the Chris Brown moves and teach other people how to do it. That's what I wanted to go to school for eventually, when I was like, oh, I can't go to LA. And so VCU, Virginia Commonwealth, I applied there, went on a tour, and I saw that they had a major in, I think it was dance or choreography. And I was like, yep, I'm coming here, because my best friend was going there too. And I never forget, my father was like, who's paying for this? Dancing is not a real career, all those things. So I was like, okay, whatever. And I ended up going to community college, because I was just late to really get into a 4-year. So my best friend went to VCU and I didn't. But yeah, I used to love dancing. Now a little old, so the moves ain't moving as as they used to move.
Well, that was back then. We went over, but it's okay. It's all right. We're here now, so it's okay. I appreciate that, because it's okay. But if you want to dance now, I mean, I can't dance the way I used to dance across Bridgewater campus, in like 4-inch heels. I do what I can, just to keep the adrenaline pumping. But that's just how we do it now. I want to get into what that year looked like. Because one, I still even then offer my condolences to your grandmother passing that July. I'm in the thick of it, because mine just passed in January, and I want you to walk me through, what did that first year look like before you actually made the decision to go into applying for your doctorate program, and also to the promises and like the grief, and what was your mental health like?
It was non-existent. The way I describe it is, the first 6 months of her death, I didn't know if I was coming or going. I was literally walking, just going through life in motion. And I'm so thankful that I had students, because I was working in housing, so I had RAs that recognized that, but I taught them well enough to do the job without me having to really always be mentally there. And after December of 2013, it it's something in me, I don't know what it was, but it finally clicked on and said, hey, you still alive, so what we doing? And that's when I started researching doctoral programs, etc., and figuring out ways how I could honor my grandmother and who she was and who she still is in my life. And everything I do, whether it's big or small, is attributed to her and how she instilled in me this Proverbs 31 woman, being virtuous, being accepting of folks and honoring folks, honoring the purpose God has for you, and making it okay to walk in this walk alone if I have to, because people don't recognize my purpose or understand it. She was a prayer warrior. She was a woman of God, a prophetess. She was just a lot of inspiration to me that I didn't know then how much of an inspiration she was for me in my life until she passed. And even after that. And it also put me in a space of, what is legacy? And I want to leave a legacy. And I think during that time is when I started. And I don't think I came with these words, but my mindset was, if I'm whatever I'm gonna leave behind, I want to live it right now. I don't want people to say, oh, she was this, she was great, but I didn't live that life, right? And so I want to live the legacy that I want to leave behind. And I mean, I still have my moments. I'll be very honest. Typically around the winter time, because I have seasonal affective disorder or depression, whatever they call it. And used to be in July, I would feel her spirit heavy. And so it would be a very depressing moment for me. um and it wasn't until maybe the last 2 or 3 years where that kind of slowed down, and I began to honor her in different spaces. And what I realized is that when I did speeches or keynotes or workshops or anything that dealt with you know um people and inspiring them and giving those opportunities, what I realized is she was still sending me messages. And to honor her, I honored that in the space that I was in. So I never forget. So I'm a member of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated. And one of the chapters in North Carolina had invited me to be a guest speaker for their annual tea. And as I was driving there, I was passing by a church that was having a funeral, and I immediately like kind of not shut down, but I don't something just happened, and my grandmother came into my spirit. Because you write a speech, you have the words, but I allowed the spirit and the atmosphere to move me. And when I got there, and was beginning to speak, I went off tangent a little, but it was necessary. And I remember looking at one of my sorors who I had never met before and just glimpsed and, walked away. But afterwards, she came up to me and she hugged me and she provided some words of encouragement. And I won't get into the thick of that. But what I told her was, nowadays, when I go into spaces like this, I look for signs of my grandmother. Because if anyone had an encouraging word, regardless of the situation, she did. And I saw her in you. And when she hugged me, we just sat there and cried because I felt my grandmother's spirit within her, as if she was standing in the gap for my grandmother that day. And in many different spaces, when I give speeches or talks around inspiration, etc., that's the feeling that arises. I remember being in Colorado and I was doing a workshop, and most of my workshops were around self-awareness. And I saw another lady who happened to be my soror, and she came up to me and talked to me, and in that meeting I began crying because I felt my grandmother's spirit then. And so I am just honored that even though she's not here physically, she's still sending me messages and encouraging words to not only leave a legacy but live the legacy just as she did. So days are better now, and I look at her leaving this world physically differently. And I also, bring the question of, I know God makes no mistakes, and there's a time and place for everything. And about the timing of her death, and then me launching out into my own and my career and etc., and just how she has been the foundation of it all.
I was getting so choked up. Thank you
Yeah.
so much for your authenticity and sharing that story. And it reminded me so much of my grandmother, where I just was like, I did not expect that, especially those moments where how you had reflected on how you can feel when your grandmother just comes into your spirit and still sends you messages. I've definitely been feeling that within the past few months, and I've even seen her a few times, like within my dreams or just in like moments where I'm like, it comes like here and there. So I appreciate you saying that, even like that it's slowed down a little bit within the past 2 years, because I don't think I've even given myself grace. And it only happened in January.
Yeah.
April.
Yeah.
I'll be on May. And I'm like, okay, I should be good. I should be good. I'm just like, and I'm not. So I appreciate you saying that. Thank you.
Yeah.
You talked about one. I love the fact that you talk about actually living your legacy and what legacy means, because I relate so much to that when you talk about what it is, how can you honor your grandmother? And even you mentioned earlier that when you signed up for your doctorate program, in the middle of it, you realize, okay, I just can't be doing it for her. There has to be another reason. And I appreciate people who can acknowledge those moments, because it's not easy to figure that out on your own sometimes,
Right.
where like, this is why I'm doing this, where I realized the reason why I became an overachiever is because I wanted my father to see me and notice me when he never claimed me. And when I had that epiphany moment of, this is why I'm doing this is why I'm achieving so much. Like, yes, it's great that I become good at these things, but I'm not actually getting what I think I'm desiring,
Right.
or actually having the goal accomplished. And why am I doing these things? So what does legacy mean to you? And how do you see you, and like for your family, how do you see yourself building your legacy moving forward?
Yeah, this is legacy right here. Legacy is the footprints that I leave behind. And a part of that is, how do I, one, begin the work in myself to be vulnerable enough to leave the footprints. I realized that a lot of people are walking, but they ain't leaving footprints.
Child.
Because
Pray
to
over
leave, I mean, you think about it, to leave a literal footprint, you have to step hard on a surface for it to stay forever. And so as I walk in purpose, I'm stepping hard in the purpose that God has given me that leaves the footprints. And it is my hope that when people see these footprints, is leading them not to me, but leading them in a space of encouragement to their own purpose, right? Legacy to me is being in spaces and holding spaces for folks that may or may not would, because life and death is in God's hand, live way beyond me, right? And those footprints can be many things, like a recording, podcast. I've written 2 books, you websites, journals, articles, whatever it is. And also legacy is, even if I have a simple conversation with one person that I probably would never see again, and they remember it, that's legacy right there, because they're going to share that conversation with someone else, right? And so I know that there are people out in this world that know who I am that I have yet to meet because of a conversation I had with someone that they're connected to. That's legacy. And when I do meet those folks, if that does come, I want them to be able to say, oh, you're living what that individual was talking about, right? So legacy to me is ongoing. But the biggest part, like I said before, is you got to learn how to live it first. I don't want to be a hypocrite of purpose, right? I don't want to say, "Oh, find your purpose and walk in it," and then I'm not doing it. So legacy is really important for me. It's also attached to this idea of integrity, that I'm going to say what I'm going to do, what I say I'm going to do, and when I'm going to do it, which ties into that transparency piece. And though social media gets a bad rap, depending on who's talking about it, social media opens up opportunities to be transparent, more so for me and how I walk in my purpose and how unapologetically I am in this space, how I disrupt every table that I'm at. It's not that I don't care. It's not that I'm nonchalant. It's just that my purpose is stirred up. And so I have to move according to the way my purpose stirs up. And whatever that means for people. And so what I do know is that as I'm living the legacy, I'm starting to get feedback that I am living it, right? And what that looks like is people saying, if I show up to a place to speak or just being there, the first thing most people will look at are my shoes. And I didn't start
You've
realizing
always
that.
had nice shoes. That you've
And
always had nice shoes.
I never started realizing that until I remember doing event at an institution that someone invited me to, and I didn't have sneakers on, and I didn't have like a t-shirt with a statement and a blazer, etc. And I walked in, and the person who invited me, shout out Dr. Peel, because that's who invited me, she showed up in some sneakers, a statement tee, and a blazer, and she was like, "Doc," I was like, "Oh." She's like, "That's what you're known for?" Like, what? And I was like, I had a moment of imposter syndrome because you're inviting me to this predominantly white institution to speak to this group of folks, and I felt like I had to look a certain way. And because I felt like I had to look a certain way, I did not walk in my purpose. I didn't walk in authentic spaces for myself. And her saying that reminded me of that. And so as I moved on, I said, I have to be me. I have to do it. That's my legacy, is being me.
Can I tell you something?
Yeah.
After I had surgery,
Mm-hmm.
and I also too like I got out of a fine dining of hospitality, so I was like working within like a lifestyle gym. After I had surgery, my body was definitely a lot different, and I had to hang up my heels.
Mm-hmm.
When I had to realize that my worth and my value wasn't wrapped up in like, my heels and my dresses, because you knew that was my thing.
Mm-hmm.
I had to transform my brand and figure out what else made me happy, what other outfits did I really feel comfortable in.
Right.
And I thought about you. So if you don't ever really see, I don't have now. I'm still not that much of a sneakerhead. I'm getting
Yeah,
better.
that's okay.
Because that I have some, but
Yeah.
only thing now that I wear, especially even if like I said, I still have my dresses and stuff because I still like feel more comfortable in the dress. But I
Right.
notice more like when I'm going to a school, or even if it's like I'm going to really speak and I'm telling stories or it's a workshop, I feel more comfortable in my blazer because it makes a statement. Like it has to be in a color, a bright
Yeah.
color,
Mm-hmm.
and a statement tee, because I remember you always wearing those. And when I started wearing it, I was just like, oh, I don't know if this is what she feel like, but I like it. Okay. So I wanted to tell you that because when you talked about like going, and I know we don't have as much time left because of other things, but I wanted to tell you that is because when you talk about legacy, one, you leave legacy. You definitely do, because you've made an impact on me. I'm not just saying it just because of the year that we spent together. And it was definitely only a year, but you made such an impact on me. And learning that from you, and about having to be yourself and walking in your purpose and having the audacity to be you, you are one of those people that I look to for that. I know we had talked about a little bit before we got on about how I had did this whole rebrand is
Mhm.
because I was so wrapped up in living my life in comparison to
Mhm.
to other mentors, even like my mentors I don't have like direct contact to,
Mhm.
versus just embracing where I am right now and embracing me.
Yeah.
See my ears in the background now of my
I
shows
love
because
it.
part of
Genuinely,
me,
I love
like
it.
part of me, like you're gonna like before I transition to my brand new office this summer in my house in my new home, like you're gonna like I want to actually show like the vulnerability side of me versus showing that hey, I got it all figured out, I have it all perfect and it's designed and it's right and it's cool, but I don't. And I was struggling so bad with that versus just coming into what the actual title is, having the audacity to be yourself and walk in your purpose.
Yeah.
So what was that switch for you that made you just say, you know, bleep
'Cause
it,
it
I'm
was
gonna be
missing. Yeah, because it was missing from people around me.
mm,
And the very thing I was trying not to do was the very thing people needed me to do, and that was to be myself. And walking in purpose with audacity is not about what you do, it's about who you need to be,
mm,
right? And who you need to be is yourself, and you need to define who that is. Because once I'm in a space of knowing who I am, then I can begin to align what I do to that, rather than doing what other folks are doing and trying to align that with who I am. So being is part of that audacity to walk in purpose, because we know that purpose looks different for everyone. Some of our purposes scare us, but the moment you just be in that purpose, all the doing would just come. As I tell folks, even from a business aspect, it used to start off with I have to do this and do that so I can get this type of money because I want this money to go on this trip. And I never forget, I used to have a podcast and had a guest on, and we were talking about scripture, and we walked away with this idea of I don't have to chase money. Money chases me, because in somewhere in the Bible it says grace and mercy shall be added unto given to you, right?
mhm.
And all these good things will come. They will follow me all the days, right? And so if money is a good thing, it'll chase me. And so the moment I started being me, I literally saw the money, the opportunities for my business start coming in. The moment I released the thought of I need to make this amount of money, the opportunities start coming in. And when I say opportunities, I mean opportunities where they're flying me out, putting me in a hotel, and
Mm,
then on top of that, giving me the money to do a workshop or etc. Those opportunities, right? Um,
mhm.
Even in spaces where I used to charge a certain amount, and people after working with me from the coaching space would be like, "Yeah, you need to charge more." And I'm like, what? Like, I may not can't afford it, but you need to charge more, right? And so I did all of this because of what I saw other people were doing. So as an entrepreneur, you go and you look
Yeah.
at what other people are doing in your space. Oh, they've been doing this for 10 years and charging 1,000. So I just started. So maybe I should just charge 200. But then it flipped, So I'm in a coaching program right now, and one of the concepts is, moving from that do, having, and being to starting with being, then doing, and then the having will come. And so I may look to see what other people do, but I don't do it. Everything that I do is attached to who I need to be to become fully invested into the purpose God has given me.
Every conversation you leave me and John are always crying. And yes, even my towel, 'cause I don't know. At this point, I'm just gonna have to have tissues around because I have nothing. And even my towel, yes, it's on brand. But
It is.
I pre I want to say maybe not maybe. I know that God and my grandmother right now are moving through you because you're speaking to me,
Mhm.
because I definitely had that flip this year where I went from, I still kind of was in that mix of space of, like not really having clarity. When I went out on full-fledged entrepreneurship, it was something that I completely prayed for, but I don't think I was absolutely prepared for it as I thought I was, being full-fledged on my own. And I got here and I was like, oh, okay. And focusing so much on the having, when I say the creativeness was blocked, like everything was blocked, like I just could not get it together. And then when I just said, all right, look, because I talk to myself in the third person, because we still do that. I'm like, all right, look, girl, you're gonna have to, like, obviously this is not working. So probably, but let's focus on what you can do and what it is that it just means to be, because moving into a space where now, like, I'm entering a new chapter of my life. I want to be with the love of my life, and I'm going to a whole new town, and just in another space that where I'm literally living answered prayers that I never thought would be answered.
Yeah.
I didn't know what that looked like, but now I do. And now I just need to focus on the being and focus on the woman I know I dreamed of becoming. And who does she look like? What does she do to take care of herself right now? What is she doing? When I focused on that and focused on my purpose, which is letting God use me to help people
Yeah.
in the spaces, whether it be through schools and workshops and any of those things. Like, yes, those things are important, but just let them use me.
Yeah.
When I did that, when I say my first, like, March was nonstop, I was just like, oh my God, okay, cool. Then I started getting these other bookings, and I just start asking people, and I was like, hey, I'm not gonna be scared no more. Hey, can you do this? Yeah. Yeah. Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, okay, well then cool, let's just do it. And like you said, when you just focus more on the being versus the having, and I'm like, okay, I learned things from my other entrepreneur friends and from, like, my other coaches and my programs and my mentors. But instead of focusing more on, I'm going to do exactly what they're doing versus what I need to do to become who I need to become,
Yeah.
things become a lot easier.
Yeah. Because what I've also realized is things that I was trying to do because other people were doing. The moment I started being, I realized I ain't really had to do that.
True.
So I was like, I wasted all of these years doing this, this, and this, realizing that that wasn't part of my journey to do. That's why I was only getting mediocre opportunities or not even seeing opportunities, because I was trying to follow in the footsteps, so to speak, of someone else that I thought was who I wanted to be. But who I wanted to be was who God had called me to be. Because as I think about scripture, it's for me is he didn't say, will you do and then follow me. He said, be a follower of me.
Amen.
He said, just be, and then the doing. Just commit to the being. Will you be? Right? And then once you identify what that being is, being disciplined, I need to be a learner, all of these things. Now, what do I need to do? Right? To shift my mindset to go after what I want. So yeah, it's definitely a mindset shift. It's not always written plain sight in books. We're not always, when I say we, Black women in particular, are not always in community together to have these conversations to help each other propel to the next space in life.
That part. Um, I'll say that I'm never one to, like, I don't want to put anybody against each other, but there are moments where I know I can't be everywhere, and I had to come to that realization. Yes, walking into Mental Health Awareness Month, my mental health was, I can't be out like I used to be, but I'll post your flyer when I can. I'll post your stuff as much. If I can't make it, or even if I can, I will still post it. But it's like, hey, would you do this? Would you do this? Not just because I'm not coming out anymore. It's like most of the time I just can't. But when I come and call for something, it's like, oh, we're silent. I'm like, you know what? That's cool. And I don't take it personally. And
Yeah.
I just, you know what? I had to start, I think what my friend said, I had to start stopping the paragraph and just say okay and give everybody else grace, because I would want to expect grace.
Yeah.
And because everybody has life is life, but God be God. I've been
Yeah.
using that since she said I have been using it and they have been loving it. But we are short on time. So, Dr. K, I just want to know, like, what is it that you would like to leave us with? Any other piece that you would like our listeners to like take home with them? Just take a piece of them. I'm sorry, not take a piece of you home with them. What is it that you would like to leave?
Okay. What's coming to mind is that everybody that you think is aligned to your purpose is not. And that even includes people you've recently asked to indirectly or directly support you, i.e., going back to what you said, sharing a post or showing up to an event for you, etc. Most of those people are not even aligned to your purpose. That's why they're falling through.
I mean, you heard it here. So, Dr. K, how can we support you? Where can we follow you? All that stuff will be listed, but you just have to say it. So
Yeah. So on Facebook, at Clear Pathway CS. On Instagram, at Disrupt Narratives. So you can follow me both on Instagram and Facebook. And then my website is www.clearpathwaycs.com.
awesome. Thank you so much, Dr. K, for this healing and transformative conversation. I appreciate your time because I know your time is definitely precious, and also too, you booked.
Thank you for having me in your space. It's an honor to always get asked to come on shows or support folks, because you don't have to. It's a choice. So yeah, thank you.
Please don't make me cry again. I appreciate you again. So remember, please, if there's something that stood out to you on this episode, make sure you comment and let us know. Like, share, subscribe. Make sure you follow Dr. K and keep up with her and support her, and follow us on Instagram. And we will catch you next Tuesday for Mental Health Awareness Month, because we're kicking off May. So have a wonderful morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are. Just make sure you're being safe and taking care of you. Remember, you heard it here with your girl TC, and take care. Bye.